Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the December 13th meeting of the Dartmouth School Committee to order. If you could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Ms. Genther, can we have a roll call, please?
Shannon Jenkins.
Here.
Mary Waite. Kathleen Amaral.
Here.
John Nunes.
Yep.
Chris Oliver.
Here.
Thank you. I'd like to remind everyone that this meeting is open to the public, but it is accessible via live stream on youtube.com/DHSTV Media. I'd also like to remind everyone present to please silence any cell phones. The first item on our agenda is public comment. We will allow for public comment for anyone in the audience on any of the items that are on agenda for this evening. Thank you, Ms. Genther. All right, so hearing none, I will move on to the next item on our agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from our November 15th meeting.
So moved. Second.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Nunes, a second by Mr. Oliver. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Next up on our agenda, we have,
Should be one abstention.
okay.
I apologize.
I apologize. That would be 3 yeses and 1 abstention, Ms. Genther. That was an abstention by Ms. Amaral. I apologize, Ms. Amaral. That was my bad there. I apologize. All right. The next item on the agenda is our student representative report. Evan, you are giving our report tonight, yes?
I am, yeah.
All right, thank you. Go right ahead.
So my name is Evan Garcia, and I am a senior here at Dartmouth High School. I will be serving as the high school student representative to the school committee for the next few months. I had this honor last year, and I really enjoyed it. I think it's so great that our administrators and school committee really value the voices of students. And I can't wait to update you at this meeting and at future meetings as well. Dartmouth High School's fall athletic season is now over. It concluded on Thanksgiving. It was a very successful season across many different sports. We were able to honor all of our fall athletes by holding our first pep rally in over 2 years. It was very successful. All of the COVID policies were followed by and large. And it was very nice to be back in that, in the gym cheering on all of my classmates. I think it was really great that that could happen again. Dartmouth's winter sports season is now underway, with student athletes competing in indoor track, in basketball, in cheerleading, ice hockey, and unified bowling. In addition, Dartmouth's arts programs are strong as always. Dartmouth High School's theater company had an extremely successful production of Christmas in New England. This was an original show, and it found a really large audience, proving to be very popular, and all of those involved, from the actors and actresses to the tech and stage crew, did a great job. On Wednesday, Dartmouth High School hosts its Holiday Pops concert at 7 p.m. Each performer can bring 4 guests, and the Poetry Out Loud competition will be live streamed on Wednesday, the 22nd, during the school day, and a link to that will be added to the description of this meeting. So our arts program is going very well. Dartmouth High School's counseling department offered the ASVAB test recently to help students explore their college and career interests. The test was optional, and several students took advantage of the opportunity. On December 9th, Dartmouth High School had 2 students in the DHS TV media program recognized for their outstanding video submissions to the Massachusetts Department of Transportation Safe Streets Smart Trips High School Video Contest. Natalie Gonzalez and JJ Esterlin had their video selected as one of the top 3 submissions in the state. So congratulations to Natalie and JJ. There's so much happening at DHS. I can personally attest to that, and I think it's so great that there's a sense of normalcy this year that has unfortunately been lacking as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Thank you. Do any of my committee members have a question or a comment?
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Good to see a lot going on.
Yeah.
It's good to see you, Evan, and I will obviously extend an invitation for you to stay if you would like. But of course, if you would like to go, we understand that you're busy, but if you would like to stay, we're welcome, you're welcome to stay and, you know, have input.
Yeah, I have a big test tomorrow, so I think
You
I have to
can
study
go
for
right
that.
home. That
Thank
is
you
the
so much,
most
Dr.
important
Jenkins.
thing. That's
Yeah.
right.
Go study.
Thank you.
Have a
Good
nice
luck.
night.
Okay, so moving on our agenda, we're on to old business, and we talk about the superintendent evaluation and the SMART goals. I will admit, you know how there's some things that you just can't ever wrap your brain around? This is one of them. It is not the most straightforward thing. Definitely going to hand it over to Dr. Gifford to direct this conversation.
Well, if you don't know, then maybe that's a good thing, right? Anyway, Mr. Nunes and I met. Unfortunately, Ms. Amaral was unable to attend our meeting that we had to prepare for this, but we did, well, we talked about 4 goals, and let's start, I don't know how you have it, but the student learning goal. And I'll back up a little bit, because we'll be putting this all in the drive like we did, maybe last year with COVID, I forget what was what, but it'll be in the drive. And if you take a peek at the student learning goal, for example, our process or our goal will be to continue to roll out the bridges in math that we've been working on starting this year with the elementary schools. So the comprehensive pre-K through 5 curriculum, there's a lot of professional development that's been going on, and coaches are helping teachers implement this program as well. And it'll be a 2-year goal, because obviously this is just the preparation year, the professional development year, and teachers learning to use the manipulatives and the resources, et cetera. So we have some outcomes that we're hoping to be able to look forward to in the second year, which includes some of the basic test scores, et cetera. And also, we'd like to take a peek over, not that probably I'll be doing it because we'll be seeing high school kiddos over time, how many kids continue to enroll in the higher level math courses, et cetera. So this is the goal we have. If you look at, I haven't finished detailing all of the action steps that we'll be engaged in, but this is just some of the sample things that we'll be doing. And on the right side, all of these will be links like last year that you'll be able to look at those documents. So that's the student learning goal. The district, we did develop, and I say we because, as we always say, it takes a team to do all of this, obviously. The District Improvement Goal 1 will be continuing to work on the accelerated learning that we talked about. All the principals talked about that when they presented their school improvement plans. And as you recall, like if you look at this document, the 3 core principles that we wanted everyone to create action steps and practices around the foster the sense of belonging and partnership with families and students, monitoring students' understanding throughout the entire year, and then ensuring the grade appropriate instruction. And as you might recall, DESE came up with this whole plan mostly in response to, obviously, the COVID, what they were looking at as learning gaps, et cetera, and how can we continue to meet kiddos where they are, not step back in time per se and start all over again, but meet them where they are and monitor their learning by and also providing a lot of scaffolding and resources. So that's our goal, to see how we do with that. And again, on the right side will be some of the things. For example, we have the self-assessment that we've asked the schools to do, et cetera, et cetera. So that's District Improvement Goal 1. And then number 2, which I was going to talk a little bit about in my update as well. Unfortunately, we've been chosen, I guess fortunately, I'll say fortunately. We're so happy to be chosen by DESE for a comprehensive district review this year. We have already met with, as some of these things, attended webinars with DESE to learn about the process. DESE has engaged with a research center, the American Institute for Research, And will be coming, not only are we required to upload multiple documents having to deal with everything from instruction to human resources to finance for them to look at and analyze. And also they'll be coming to do on-site meetings, interviews. You might all get called because they're talking about school committee, staff, et cetera. So as I said, they'll then give us a report on how well they think we're doing. And fortunately, I guess, this report is not like the TFM, the Tiered Focus Monitoring one with the civil rights and special ed, which we're also having to undergo. I'll get to that one as in my report later.
In the middle of a pandemic.
In the
In the pandemic.
I was just gonna say.
Yeah, and this one, the comprehensive one, it doesn't require a corrective action plan for anything that they might deem is not acceptable or whatever it might be. So, anyway, it will just be a report, and we'll see. I think we don't have a date of when start for, as far as them coming to the district. We have already started collecting information. We've met with the leadership team. Everybody has a task, et cetera. But I think we'll probably be around March or so that the actual them on site will happen. And then the third one, the fourth goal is the professional practice goal. And having discussions with our group, we just thought that since we started the professional development site, going back now a year and a half, 2 years ago, to really try to gather everything that we do and offer and PD and offer lots of different choices for teachers, we would maintain and keep that site up. And one of the major pieces that we're doing with that is the master teacher platform, which we started last year and really received really great feedback from the teachers because it's self-driven. They can go ahead and engage in it online, but they also then get their PDPs, et cetera, et cetera. So we want to continue to update that resource for folks as part of the professional development plan. So those are the 4 goals, and as I said, the action steps, some of them are in draft form right now. And it will all be in the drive as we move along. So the other thing we talked about during our meeting was the indicators, which you might have this document similar from DESE. You've seen it before, and it under the 4 standards. And Mr. Nunes and I had a discussion about it, and I know in the past we've chosen a few from each. We didn't. Mr. Nunes, you can kind of speak to that, but we didn't think it was necessary, that perhaps we just look at it as a holistic, like we have in the past, view of the work that goes on in the district. So with that said, I'll stop, and your discussion and I would ask that you vote for the SMART goals, and then you can discuss whether you think it's a good idea to just avoid choosing from these indicators and going ahead and just looking at this whole evaluation process as more of a holistic approach.
All right, thoughts? Mr. Nunes, I might start with you, because I know you already sort of discussed on the, some of this, so maybe you can share some of your thoughts and thinking with us.
Yeah, you know, Dr. Giffen and I did meet, and we kind of went over everything, including the rubric evaluation and such. I agree with my colleague here, with everything that's going on, the pandemic and that type of deal. And now you're going to have, you know, DESE coming in to do all kinds of review work on things. You know, somebody's got way too much time up there, I think. But that's my opinion. But I agree with what the superintendent said with regards to the goals to look at, and, you know, the rubrics, just to have them as an indicator type of deal.
Thoughts, comments, Mr. Oliver?
So I'm fine either way. If someone can refresh my memory, when we met with Dorothy Presser from MASC, I know that there was a reason originally that we looked at pulling out certain indicators to, I don't know if maybe that was originally, the original intention was to make it a little bit easier for the school committee to evaluate Dr. Gifford. However, I'm okay either way. You know, I think doing the whole holistic approach, as Dr. Gifford has said. I think that makes sense this year. I'm fine with that. One of the things I would like to ask is with some of these, take for example, I think it was the student goal, the Bridges program, is for evidence of implementation, and I don't know if this would make sense with the rest of the committee. Is there any kind of feedback? I'd like to hear what the, whether it's the math coaches or staff in general, just their take on the implementation of the program. You know, and that's just one piece of it, because I know we invest hundreds of thousands of dollars in curriculum, and I think it's important that we look at the big picture here and solicit some feedback, or through you, Dr. Gifford, as to
That's fine.
the implementation of it.
Sure.
That would be my only thought.
To follow up, if I remember correctly, about sort of these indicators, I don't think it will be a problem here, but I think one of the reasons why she suggested that you pick one or two was such that the superintendent didn't feel like she had to provide evidence
Yes.
for all of them, right? And if you have a contentious relationship on the school committee, you might be like, aha, there is no evidence for this one thing here, therefore bad, right? So I can see how that balance, you know, we don't want you to, again, to Mr. Nunes' point, in a pandemic, doing all of these other things, to feel like you have to upload evidence for every single one. So I think if we're going to do a holistic review, I think that we as a committee ought to agree that we don't engage in that sort of behavior, that we don't say, oh, there's not, you know, something on number 5, subsection 6, therefore,
Right.
that it will be holistic, and that we can't, do you know what I mean? There has to be
Right.
an agreement that we're all going to approach it the same
That's,
way.
yeah, that's, I mean, and just to follow your point, I know it's Mrs. Amaral and I that get to do this again. Lucky us. But very seriously, I mean, if there's something, you know, when Dr. Gifford puts everything out there, if there's something that's missing, or you think you'd like to see, let us know, and we can approach the superintendent and say, listen, can you upload X, Y,
Yes.
Z?
Yes.
Because, you know, members are looking for something on this.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think that would be an issue, but to put a
Right.
whole kit and caboodle of stuff out there is not.
I just don't want her to feel like she has to upload
Right.
Right, I
evidence
mean,
for every
yeah.
single thing.
Right,
That's
exactly.
a lot of work.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, like standard 1 is a 1A, 1B, 1, all the way to F, so you.
Yeah, you know,
Right.
right.
So I'm fine with making it holistic, so long as we all can sort of agree that we're not going to look for evidence for necessarily for every single indicator, or if we think something's missing that we should ask.
Right. That's, I'm fine with that.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Chris.
I think, you know, the past history with the committee and this administration, I think speaks for itself, in which, you know, since we've had Dr. Gifford, as well as many of us on the committee, there hasn't been a climate or
Right.
gotcha climate, and I think that it starts right at the top of the school committee, and, you know, we set the example, so.
Right, yeah. Ms. Amaral?
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't disagree with anyone. You know, in having gone through this in the preliminary stages in the past, you know, I like the thought of having a holistic approach, because in looking at it, oftentimes it's, you know, one leads into the other, so.
Exactly.
And we're really fortunate that, you know, the evidence that you provide us, whatever it may be, aligned with this approach,
Right,
are things that we're familiar with.
Exactly.
So to Shannon's point of, wow, this is like, okay, something that just isn't clicking in terms of the, well, we get to see all that, and I've
Exactly.
appreciated that in my tenure, having, you know, see what we need to see during these meetings, but then also
Exactly.
having you do that work. I feel like your rubric is sort of like, oh gosh, I feel like it's a cheat sheet, right?
Yeah.
And easy access to what we need to see, which is
Exactly.
extremely helpful.
Yep.
The review and monitoring, is that just something new that or is this something that's been, I'm just not familiar with it as a separate entity
Yeah,
from the
They've done
regular
it in it's,
reporting?
I remember years ago, I was on in another school district and was on the team that actually that implemented it, but I hadn't heard about it in a number of years, whether just COVID got in the way and now
Yeah.
they're trying to catch up.
Yeah,
So, yeah, it's pretty comprehensive.
Yeah.
And again, on top of it, we have, which I might as well just, I was going to do it on my report, but I might as well just talk about the audits themselves. So the tiered focus monitoring, you've seen that report in the past, the
Yeah.
civil rights and the special education. So we're on for that one as well. We haven't, the self-assessment needs to be submitted sometime very soon. I can't remember the exact date to tell you. Oh, I think it was this spring. And then we just got word, and just got word this week, another email, that we have a tiered focus monitoring in English language learner department.
Wow,
So
yeah.
I'm assuming that DESE has a million departments that aren't talking to each other. So
Yeah.
that's 3 audits. And each one of these monitoring systems, when you have to do either your self-assessment or begin of submitting materials, is a lot.
Yeah.
You have to
Yeah.
submit it all up into a, so we have
It's
that.
a lot in regular times, let alone
Yeah.
over
Yeah.
pandemic.
And I did bring it up to our executive board recently, and, you know, Tom Scott, the executive director, did bring it up to the commissioner, and, because they said, what are some of the topics, right? The overabundance of data and audits, so, it is what it
Well,
is.
they must be
Yeah.
looking for things to do.
I know.
Right?
I mean, this has been my
crazy.
frustration with DESE throughout the pandemic, right, is that the lack of recognition for the added burden of work that comes with the pandemic, and then putting the
Yeah.
stuff like no release from paperwork or reporting, and I know this data is important, but at the same point in time, like, something's got to give.
Yeah.
Right.
I also think, you know, one of the things that we can do as a school committee is advocate for things like you've suggested through our state representatives and our state senators, to communicate to them that perhaps there should be some sort of policy that you only do 1 audit per year or 2 audits per year. The luck of the random draw may
Right.
mean that you end up, but we can put rules to prohibit the bad luck of the random draw. So I will communicate with our state rep and our state senator on that, but if anyone else would like to also reach out to them and mention that, I think that might be helpful. And they've always been, I will say,
Right.
responsive when we send emails
Send
and
an
talk
email or
to them
something.
about that, so that's good. And that's part of that relationship. Mr. Oliver?
I think the other piece, too, that maybe we should consider is passing a resolution that we can forward to MASC through advocacy as well, as far as being opposed to all these things at once coming down.
Yeah.
Just something else to think about, and I can certainly look and draw it up and for the next meeting if you'd like.
That would be great.
Sure.
Would you do?
I would like
do you
that, yeah.
like that as well?
Yep.
Okay. If you could do that,
I'll
that
draw
would
up
be
the
fabulous,
language.
Mr. Oliver. And so we just need to make sure, Ms. Gunther, can you make a note to put that on the agenda for our next meeting, so that we can talk about that. Other comments about the evaluation and SMART goals? All right, so I will entertain a motion to approve the SMART goals as they were presented by Dr. Gifford this evening.
Make that motion that we approve those SMART goals for.
Second.
All right, so I have a motion by Ms. Amaral, a second by Mr. Nunes. Any further discussion on the issue? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
All right, thank you.
All right, I remember that
Thank you.
time to ask for abstentions. Those passed unanimously. All right, the next item on the old business is the student representation to the school committee. I am going to suggest, Ms. Waite was unable to be with us this evening, she had some personal matters to attend to. She has some definite sort of thoughts and opinions about how we might structure this role. And it's not like we're going to get a student representative in the next 2 weeks of December, or the first week in January. So I don't feel like we must make this decision this evening. So I'd like to ask the committee if you're okay with sort of punting on that one until the next meeting. Seeing head nods.
Fine by me.
Okay. All right, so the next item on our agenda, moving on to new business, is a capital improvement plan. I will turn it over to Mr. Kiley.
Thank you, Dr. Jenkins. So last week, I forwarded over the FY '23 through '27 capital improvement plan draft to you. There's 40 projects on that list, totaling about 15 million, and that includes one that has kind of a question mark. That would be a lot more than that. So we've done a lot in this district over the last, 11 years that I've been here, but there's still things that need attention. the things that we've included in the current year's request at this point are things that we recognize may or may not be able to be supported, depending on things like free cash and the town's ability to borrow. And I'll talk a little bit more about some other factors that may play a role in whether or not we move forward with some of these. But I think I'd like to start by looking at what we've prioritized in FY23. And the first project is door and window replacement and security-related improvements. So this is something that we've spent money on in the past. We continue to, our buildings are, they're old, they're aging, and we need to continue to maintain them. There are constantly things that break down, deteriorate, that we need to address. Internal, external doors, windows, and obviously security is a high priority item for us. So we need to be sure that we have funding to complete that project as needed. High school tennis court reconstruction. So this one's moved up on the list, and it's basically because there's some pretty big gaps on the tennis court out there, and they've only gotten bigger, through the last year or two. It's at the point now where it's becoming an issue as to whether it'll be playable or not. So we really need to address that. Technology hardware. So this is sort of our keeping up with improvements, replacements, really. Not so much improvements, more replacements. So we need to continue that process. I think we were positioned very well going into the pandemic compared to, I think, some of our peers, because the town has supported funding and our one-to-one initiative, and we also used school choice funding to support the one-to-one initiative in the past. So that put us in a really good place, to start at the beginning of the pandemic. And we have received some federal grant funding that supported continued one-to-one sort of district-wide, which was not where we were at the start of the pandemic. So that's great. But we need to keep up with that. So the town has supported us in the past with $200,000 a year. That is actually not coming out of the other pool of free cash and capital improvement funds. It's really coming out of the operating budget. So we hope that they'll continue to do that. The big one on the list is the high school roof replacement. So I've estimated that at $4,450,000. So complicated project for sure. So the building, the roof, I believe, was installed in 2001. So it's a full 20 years old. It's a black rubber roof. In New England, that roof would last about 20 years. That's about the expected useful life. So it's been a problem for a number of years for us. We've had part of the roof overlaid with another piece of rubber in order to string it along. But it's at the point where we do need to address it. We would propose that this project would be an MSBA accelerated repair program project. That would provide us with about half the funding for the project if it were approved by MSBA. So obviously a big project like this, that would certainly be worthwhile going through that process. It does lengthen the process. That approval with MSBA, they just approved all of their grants for this upcoming cycle in October. So we'd be looking at like next October if this were presented at a June town meeting and approved, next October before the MSBA would get on board with us, with the hopes that the following summer would be construction. So it takes a while to get this done, basically, and we can't wait forever. We probably could string it along for a year if we didn't get funding through MSBA, and or if the town decided that they couldn't fund the project. So we'll have to address that. We don't want to get to the point where we have buckets in the building. Telephone and intercom system upgrades. Some of this relates to security as well. Mr. Galashaw has identified the need to replace servers with the intercom systems. We also need to replace phones with IP phones. So we hope to accomplish that. The police department actually has access to our intercom system, which is great. It's just not a great intercom system right now. We're working on troubleshooting some things, but we need some improvements there for sure. Playground improvements at schools. We have done some playground improvements, although not major, in terms of replacing large playground equipment. That needs to start happening. If the playground equipment is nice, it's all aging, and we're having a hard time getting parts. It's breaking down. It gets a ton of use. And we really need to start focusing on those playground units at the schools gradually and replacing them one by one. So we hope to do that. Parking lot repaving, this is really an ongoing thing. We've been doing it. But we need more money to continue that process. And furniture replacement, we do have some funding for furniture replacement. It's probably not going to be enough when we hopefully go back to normal soon. And, we're having all tables and collaborative learning in classrooms and opportunities for kids to interact in a normal, the old way we used to do things, hopefully. We're not going to have the furniture we need, unfortunately. So we need to invest in that a little bit. So the total of all those is $5,760,000, obviously the high school roof being the majority of that. And that's what we hope to tackle right away in year one. So as I think you know, these items are here for your consideration. After you have approved these items, we'll then move to the Town Capital Improvement Planning Committee, the Finance Committee, the Select Board, the June Town Meeting, and then some things likely won't be on the list for the June Town Meeting. They'll be available for reconsideration at the October Town Meeting. And then whatever doesn't make the cut at that point, we can, revisit in next year's plan for sure. So that's sort of the process, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have or any feedback that you have on the list.
Mr. Oliver?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a lot of questions.
Okay.
I have a lot of questions. So let's start with the big one, the roof.
Yes.
So how much are we spending on repairs right now? Do you have could you ballpark it? Are we
Small repairs. It's not a lot.
here and there?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, small repairs. But there will be a point where the small repair is not the answer.
Sure.
One of the reasons that we overlaid a major portion of the roof is we identified that there were some faulty materials when, in the initial roofing system that really were suspect, that were cracking. And this was, I guess about 6-7 years ago now anyway.
Was it still under warranty at that time?
It was still under warranty. We hired an engineer, independent engineer, to do some work on the roof, some testing of the roof materials. We identified some things that we weren't comfortable with. They agreed to overlay a large section of the roof at the time, which is great. But basically, that's like putting a big rubber carpet on top of the roof and gluing it down. It was only on a portion of the roof, first of all, and it's not a long-term solution to fixing the roof. So what we would propose is a PVC roof similar to what we've done at the other school buildings, has about a at least 30-year life expectancy, and it's a million times better roof.
That's the white roof?
That's the white roof. It reflects heat. It's much more energy efficient, and it's just a far superior product This is the cheapest roof you could buy.
The lowest bid.
Yeah.
So, I guess, one of the other questions, I have a few more, but, in your opinion, you think that we would meet the criteria for Mass School Building Authority funding for this?
I have one small worry about it. So depending on the number of submissions that they get, they have changed the criteria as to how many years old a roof has to be. They've done it twice in the history of the accelerated repair program, and MSBA has not been around forever. So it's, a few years ago, they made a decision that they would only fund roofs that are 25 years old or more. Now, that was based on the fact that they had so many applications that they couldn't fund all the roofs. So it remains to be seen how we would fit into that and whether or not they'd consider it. I mean, it is possible that it might not get done in the first year that we apply. That doesn't mean it's not worth applying or,
Right.
gaining support from the town for, and it doesn't prevent you from reapplying,
Sure.
obviously.
I just have concerns of if we don't receive the funding going, asking the town for $4.4 million.
I wouldn't advise it at this point.
Okay,
If we get to the point where we have buckets all over the building and we're damaging, the building because we're, at that point, obviously, then we have to make some hard decisions. I think that MSBA will support us with a project. We've had very successful projects with MSBA.
sure, you have a good track
All the
record.
roofs that we've done on, the last 10 years, all the other buildings are taken care of through MSBA projects. So I really feel like they will work with us and support us.
So if everything were to go as planned, if you were to get approval from town meeting in the fall, then Mass School Building Authority, when's the earliest that the project could be bid out if everything went as planned?
Yeah, it's possible that it could be installed in the summer of '23. That would be the best-case scenario.
In regards to the telephone and PA systems, are we looking at the whole district? Are we looking at specific schools for that money?
Yeah, so some of both. So we've done some work already with some telephone replacements, so we'd continue that process throughout the district. And the same thing with the intercom systems. We would target the intercom systems that are, the oldest in the schools that aren't working the best and basically do as much as we possibly can. Some of the estimating for this is somewhat challenging right now.
Sure.
Because it's very hard to get equipment right now. So we don't, it's.
And finding the vendors to do it for
Finding
you.
the vendors to do it, who have the equipment.
Sure.
But we'd like to bring the whole district up to a high standard.
Sure.
That's our goal.
Makes complete sense to me. I got one last question.
Mm-hmm.
I thought a couple of years back, we had approved funds, and maybe we did, and it was spent for an upgrades to the Dartmouth High School auditorium sound and lighting
Last year.
last year.
Yep.
And is that still is that project, where are we at with that project? Because I only asked because I was in the auditorium watching the winter concert, and the holiday, not the holiday concert, the holiday theater show. And I noticed that the sound and it looks like it hasn't been touched yet.
Yeah, June of '21, it was voted at town meeting. We've done some work at getting estimates, making sure that we have the right design for what we're looking for.
Yep.
And that's about where it is right now. We've not bid it out. We've
Okay.
not, decided exactly on the specification at this point.
So it was, I thought it was approved.
Yeah,
I
in
thought
June.
I thought we had approved it. How much,
Yeah.
how much money that
Yeah,
was,
it was,
Mr. Kiley?
let's see, $240,000.
Okay, so a significant amount of money.
It should fund the project, I
Should
hope. I
fully
mean,
I would, I would want to think so, but yeah, it was a great show, and, you know, sitting there, and I was like, well, we still have a sound person there, and I'm like, everything looks the same, so I was just wondering where we're at with that, so thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Nunes?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. A lot of good projects. You answered everything that I had notes on from that Mr. Oliver asked. I'd like to kind of jump ahead a little bit, and we've talked about these a little bit before, but in 24, you've got high school track, and then in 25, you've got athletic fields, and I'm thinking that's, the athletic fields mainly the baseball diamond, because of all the water that's down there.
So,
For the most part.
yes, so that's kind of an exciting one for us. Obviously, the track needs to be maintained, and we
Right.
need to take care of that. That's clearly a priority that, you know, it was sort of, we thought the track would be before the tennis courts, but unfortunately, the tennis courts are worse and have to go before the track. So that's just the way it is. The athletic field is a little different. Our thought process is to consider a artificial turf field for the baseball field, add a softball field, and likely be able to have another field in the outfield for other sports, for field sports, not baseball and softball. So our thought is to consider that down the road. And obviously, that's a big project, and it needs we need a lot of support to get that done. And, you know, it's a couple of years out in the capital improvement plan. So we'd hope to sort of work through that a little bit and get a better idea of exactly what sports we would accommodate and how that would work. You know, one of as we've had, my entire time here, we've had several different committees looking at athletic fields in the town, and one deficiency that besides the fact that there aren't enough fields, and that the condition of the fields isn't great because there aren't enough fields and you can't maintain them because you have to use them all the time. The other thing is that we have to move kids all the time from this area to other fields in town. And we'd love for the opportunity to limit that a little bit. And there are some good examples of schools doing projects like that that really makes a difference in terms of, you know, being able to have multiple levels practicing on fields. You know, and obviously, if it was right here, it would be fantastic. That's a really exciting one for us, but I think more to come on that.
Okay, yep. All right, thank you, sir. I'm good, Madam Chair.
Ms. Amaral?
So many great questions. It's like the difficulty going somewhat last. Yeah, I would love to, just our deficiency in good fields is I wouldn't want to say, well, it's a little embarrassing, but anyway, always try to do better, right? I see here, like the playground improvement, you know, kind of separated, that's sort of like tackling one, prioritizing perhaps. I don't know what the equipment looks like at different schools, but I know it's aging, and I know it's an important project.
It is, and it's on the capital, I think what you're alluding to is the fact that it's on the capital improvement plan
Yeah.
a couple of times over the next few years. And, yeah, it's big projects that really need to happen. The playground equipment is not inexpensive, but we really have to look at the large playground installations at the schools and replace them. It has to be done. We can't let it go. We can't have kids getting hurt on these things. And the maintenance of them is becoming more difficult. So we are maintaining them, but it's becoming problematic, and we don't want it to, you can't let it go. So you need to plan for these projects, and hopefully it'll be supported and we'll be able to take care of it. And what we would do is prioritize the schools with the most difficult conditions first, and move around the district, but take care of the entire district.
Yeah. Thank you.
three schools.
It's a really
with it.
important project, so I
It is.
appreciate you
Yeah.
presenting this to us. That's all I have.
Thanks. So, again, the difficulty of going last is all the questions are taken, but, I'm going to be a broken record and draw attention to the question mark, the big question mark at the end of this plan. Because we tend to be short-sighted and put 500 here, 1 million there, 2 million there, and there are things like replacing windows and DeMello and Potter, and we never ask the big picture question. What are we going to do about DeMello and Potter? What are we going to do, the locker replacement at Quinn? I suspect some of these HVACs and floorings and all this are significant chunks of change that we put in here and there to these buildings without ever looking at the fundamental question of what are we going to do about our aging schools? Right? I mean, this school, it's great, right? It's got a bad roof. Hopefully, we're going to fix that, right? It's 2002, right? It's almost 20 years old now, right? Our elementary schools are not, right, conducive. We heard from that report to the sorts of learning we want our children to be doing, given the size of the classrooms. And, we all said we didn't want that facility master plan to sit on the shelf, but it's sitting on the shelf. And I don't know how to move this conversation forward because we've got to involve the town side, and there's got to be some plan in this community for how we replace not just our aging schools, but other aging buildings in this community, because at a certain point, you're starting to hold them together with Band-Aids. There's only so much you can do. So I appreciate all of your planning that has gone into the long-term capital, plan, but I do want to point out that a lot of these things are perhaps investments we should not be making, right? And I was always hesitant about the middle school roof. That always makes me nervous, because when we get MSBA funding, we say we are committing to using these buildings, right? And now we're stuck with the middle school for 20 more years. Now, that plan will probably still be gathering dust by then, but I hope, we're ready to start talking about what to do about the middle school. But that means we got to tackle the elementary schools before that. And I don't know if, as a committee, we want to try to arrange something with the town. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts about what to do with this, but it's just a little frustrating to me at times. Mr. Oliver?
Maybe what we look at is the next time we're asked to attend a joint meeting, that's our number one bullet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that.
All right, so we'll talk to them about that. Mr. Kiley, you have some thoughts on this?
I do. I think that before we move to the town side, I think that we need to revisit. We haven't spent a lot of time with the plan in quite a while.
Because I had a heart attack the first
Yeah,
time you gave
yeah,
me the
and those
plan.
numbers are
Those numbers
all
were a lot.
stale,
Yeah.
right?
Wow.
Those numbers are
Wow.
probably 20% under.
Why do you think I
under.
wasn't here for that meeting?
But, I think it would behoove us to spend a little time
Okay.
with the plan, either in a subcommittee format. We do have a facilities subcommittee. We could take a look at it that way and sort of make sure that we understand where we might want to go with it. Because there are recommendations in that plan that I think, we need to consider them. They're recommendations.
Yeah.
They're not this has to be the way, the
Right.
direction we head with it. So,
So maybe we could schedule the facility subcommittee. I think that might be a good start.
yeah, I'd be happy
To
to
meet
put
sometime in the
something
new
together.
year, and then you all
Yeah.
can report out to the full committee about sort of your thoughts. Does that make sense with everyone?
That's fine.
I think that's fine, yeah.
Okay, I don't even know who's on the facility subcommittee. Do
I'll find out.
we? All right. Rolling the dice, who's up, right?
Used it, right?
All right, so are there any other comments on the capital improvement plan?
No.
We don't need to approve this, correct, Mr. Kiley? We're good?
Well,
Do you
you
need us-
don't need to approve it, but if you want to move this forward as it currently exists, then I would appreciate your
Oh, because you need to take
approval.
it to,
Because this is really a draft.
got
This
to
is
take
for
it to
your-
CIP anyway, so. Yeah, Madam Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the FY '23 to '27 CIP plan as presented by the Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Operation.
I'll second it.
All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Newens, second by Mr. Oliver. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions. All right, so that passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kiley. All right, Dr. Gifford, next we're on to the superintendent's update.
Couple of things, all right. Just as I said, I already talked about the audits that we have going on, and a couple other things that is happening. You all know Mr. Ferrera retired, semi-retired. He is working a little bit of part-time for us, but Mr. Kiley was able to secure his replacement, so he won't be starting till right after the holidays, right?
Yeah,
Right?
we're just finalizing paperwork, so I
Forever.
haven't made any announcements at this point.
Right,
But
so we're
yes,
not
we're
gonna say.
finalizing.
Yeah. But also, as you know, with the ESSER money, we've been adding nurse help as well, and then had one resign, so we're back to, we have another RN starting that, again, after the holidays, and that leads into, of course, our COVID discussion, which Ms. Jodwin, Lori Jodwin, in our office, has been really working. It's amazing how many, as you remember, back in when we first started the COVID discussions and then the test and stay program, how much time and energy it went into getting that going. And now she just works, it's nonstop every day, contacting the nurses, communicating with the schools of the number of cases we might have, the contact tracing, and how much we need for the next day for test and stay. But again, thanks to, as we know, Mr. Michaud, as well as our ambulance company that has been sending folks in the morning to help, and then being able to move our nurses around. It's going very well. I mean, it's work, but it's going well. So we're happy to be able to bring a nurse in after the holidays. You know, all the concerts, we were a little hesitant, a little bit on the elementary concerts, but they went off so far, and I know we have the middle school tonight.
Middle school
And
tonight.
then off to the high school coming up.
Yeah,
and-
there's also one tomorrow night.
Yeah, it's too much. So all of it's going well. And parent conferences, virtual parent conferences went well. Mr. Oliver and I just met we had a number of applicants, people that showed interest in being on our naming committee. So we just met and went through those, and we'll be alerting folks that, you know, we had so many, but we need to keep it small. We can't have 100 people on a committee.
Yeah.
So we'll be letting folks know on that and trying to get that going right after the holidays. And then the last thing is, we had information from Mass Insights. You recall that we partnered with them a couple of years back, all about STEM and advanced placement, et cetera. And happy to note that 2 of our high school teachers, Arlen Botcher, AP Bio, and Fifield, AP English and Language Comp, have been chosen as recipients for the Partners in Excellence Teaching Award for exemplary work in AP STEM and English. And that was, they're 2 of 17 Massachusetts educators that were chosen as, for their, like I said, their exemplary work in that. So they'll have a recognition ceremony sometime in April at Holy Cross, so that's exciting, and for all their hard work that they've done to be awarded like that. So that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Dr. Gifford and Mr. Oliver?
Good to see our staff being recognized.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's always nice, right?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I feel like I'm doing a lot of talking tonight.
That's okay.
A couple of things. One of the things, I thought it would be nice, I had emailed Dr. Gifford and Dr. Jenkins earlier, that at some point in the future, if we could ask Mr. Ferrera to come to one of our meetings for his 29 years of service to the school district. He's been a tremendous asset to this town, as well as to the school department. I think it would be nice if he was recognized by this committee.
Yeah, agreed.
In addition, just a couple of things. Just one being, the number one thing, in your conversations with the health department and Mr. Michaud, has there been any concern, any thoughts about doing more remote meetings or anything with, I'm just looking at the positivity, the most recent numbers are 8.58%. Are we still doing okay in the schools? And with I know the test and stay program has been a tremendous
So
asset.
valuable, yeah. It's been
But the
wonderful.
potting has been going okay at
Yeah,
the elementary
potting's going
level.
well.
But Mr. Michaud still, in
Still
his,
support it. We just met with him, might have been Wednesday or Thursday. I had all the principals join in, just so, kind of
Okay.
an update on just what the situation is, but Still very pleased with what we're doing, and he says all the time that we've done a really good job on keeping cases down, and, and we continue to emphasize the importance of not only people getting vaccinated, but also mask wearing to keep people safe. So on another note, I know the commissioner is having a Zoom meeting this week. I was actually in a meeting with the exec board last week where she attended, and it did crack us up because he's going to have a Zoom meeting this week just talking about, as you know, he had the January 15th mask mandate, letting us know, I think this week, that he hasn't made a decision about that yet. So, a meeting to let you know we don't know.
Right.
So we'll just keep doing what we're doing, but yeah,
Okay.
see, I imagine, as we all know, that after Christmas, we're probably going to see another
Right.
spike in cases, so.
But as far as in-school transmission,
In-school
that still
transmission, we
is
don't see it.
extremely low,
We
or
don't
not
see
at
it.
all? Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah, I mean, I just want to follow up, right, to Mr. Oliver with a couple of questions related to COVID. One, a statement, just,
Yeah.
we need people to do their best
Yeah.
over break, right?
Yes.
Because there was a large surge of positive cases after Thanksgiving, and we'd like
Yes.
to avoid that.
Yes.
My second question is, and I've been telling lots of people about this. So the state mandate is, how are they calculating vaccination rates? Is it in the school or is it in the community with respect to the mask mandate?
Oh, you mean that 80% that he threw out in the
Yes,
beginning? It would be
yes.
within a school.
So they would actually count?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I've been saying this
Yeah.
for months now, the state data on vaccination rates in Dartmouth is wrong.
You mentioned that,
It's
yeah.
off. The denominator counts UMass Dartmouth students, but the numerator does not. So I really want them to use good data in making this decision if they ever make that, if it
they
ever
ever
comes
change it,
down to
right.
it. Right.
Yeah.
So if you could keep us updated
Yep.
on that, I'll pay attention to what I see too, but I just have concerns about how they're calculating that for
right.
this community.
Right.
All right, so moving on to my report, I have one thing, and this is more of a question for you all. Ms. Genther has extended an invitation to the VOC school committee members to join us at our next meeting. And we're just going to have the 2 school committee members come, because I think we want to have a conversation about, right, sort of Dartmouth and Dartmouth's interest in the VOC.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a large overlap in VOC and Dartmouth's interest, but sometimes there can be some conflicts there. So I think we want to have that conversation. One of the things they want to know are the things that we want to talk to them about when they come, so they can just kind of be prepared. I know that I would like to talk to them about the new admissions policy. I have
you.
concerns about how that may impact us, because if we see a sudden surge in the number of students going to VOC, that's good for students, but also can be very financially difficult for us. So I think we need to have that sort of conversation. What other issues would you like to talk to them about? Mr. Nunes?
I had 3. You took care of one, thank you. When I sometimes watch their meetings on Channel 9 type of deal, their audio is very tough to understand. So I don't know if they don't have microphones or what they don't, like we have here, but I don't see them.
And you can't get anything from the minutes either, so.
And I was just going to
'Cause the
say, and
minutes-
that's my
Ms.
next,
Gunther's minutes
that's
are
my
much
next
better.
thing, because thank you very much, we got the minutes, thank you very much,
Right.
okay? There's nothing in them, with all
Agreed.
due respect.
Agreed.
So, I mean,
Agreed.
When-
I think
when
when
you-
you
when
read
you-
our minutes, you can tell what happened at our
Sure
meeting, what the
can.
conversation
Right.
was. There's nothing in those minutes.
I kidded our secretary before the
Yeah.
meeting that she's working too hard on the minutes because there's too much information in there type of deal.
I
which
100%
I
agree with
appreciate-
you, Mr. Nunes.
I
Yes.
appreciate, believe me, okay?
Yes.
But I think those were my 3 things.
Okay. And I think that the last 2, we can even bundle
Yeah.
around sort of the issue of more open communication between, our representatives, the town's representative to the school committee, and the town, us and the town. There are representatives, and so we
Right.
need to have that regular communication.
And one other thing too, and they did it a number of years ago. I think Mr. Shea was the superintendent at the time. And they had town days or city days that they had the elected officials,
Right.
you know,
Right.
in Dartmouth, it would be selectmen and school committee members. Take a tour of the school and walk through the school, see what's going on, the different shops, the different, you know, things of that nature, just so that we got a
Right.
little bit of a hands-on, you know, we
Right.
got, you know, the 50-cent tour. I don't mean that, you know, in all honesty, it was a great tour. I enjoyed the day.
Right.
I was
Type of
under the
deal.
impression that that was going to be extended again under Mr. Watson.
Yeah, when
So,
you talked with him, I haven't talked to him.
Yeah, I had
but
spoken
seen
to him over the, I think in the spring or summer,
Yeah.
before he took the helm. And that was one of the things that he brought up, so it would be
Okay.
nice.
Yeah.
It would be nice to see that
Yeah,
again.
I mean, in the spring, that doesn't, you know,
Right.
that's fine type of deal, but, you know, it was like one day, and then a couple of weeks later, Dartmouth would be in, and then
Right.
Fairhaven was
Sure.
in, and the Bedford was in.
Right.
You know, that type of deal.
Right.
So that
Mr.
would be
Oliver,
nice.
Ms. Amaral, do you have anything that you'd like to add to those items that we'd like to talk to the voc reps about?
No,
No?
no, just listening, just as an overview, you know, I would personally just like to hear from their perspective, you know, what they're doing to represent, you know, Dartmouth and Dartmouth's interests
Right.
at our regional vocational high school.
Yeah, why
Excellent.
is our assessment so high?
All right, so, did you get that, Ms. Ganther? Okay, so that's all I have for my report. Any other matters that the committee might want to bring up?
Evan took care of all of mine, so.
Okay, fabulous. So our next meeting is scheduled for January 10th.
2022.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Nunes, a second by Ms. Amaral. Any discussion?
No?
Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries unanimously.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Have a good break and be safe, please.
Happy New Year.